overall mile pace will get better. But have you got any advice for me in terms of just trying to get a better pace on my mile? I'm still a beginner runner, and I just want to try and do a bit of training around the next few weeks where I'm thinking of, and I just want to get that 1 mile pace quicker. And yeah, just the 1 mile really.
So you want to be able to run a mile quicker?
Just, yeah, pretty much, yeah. It's just a challenge I'm doing. I did a recent challenge where I just ran a marathon on the balcony to see where my head would go, and I've never done a marathon before. I thought with the lockdown and people not being able to do much, I tried that, but this one is just seeing if I can get what I can do with a bit of practice in there.
Well, I always relate any distance. A short distance to an ultra distance runner is a marathon, and in terms of that's what I've found. And the way to improve pace in any distance is to run shorter distances than the distance you're looking at, quicker, multiple times, and always paying attention to the recovery in between. It's not just about the pace that you're running, it's about dropping the recovery as well. So if I'm going to apply this to Yasu training, 10, 800 meters, why people have said, well, why do you focus? You do 10 800 meter pushes for Yasu, do 6 1 mile pushes and 20 400 meter pushes. That's what I do for speed work for a marathon. And the principle is always that if you can run at that pace for 400 meters, when you drop down to a slower pace over a marathon, the pace is comfortable, so the distance kicks in. So for something like a mile, I would say, if you were to say you were going to do 200 meter pushes, run as fast as you can, absolute flat out, couldn't do another thing, 200, then do 200 meters of recovery, slow, and then 200 meters again, and then back slow. And say if you did that 8 times, you'd have a mile at a 200 meter pace, but you'd have these joins in the middle of the slow stuff. Yeah, do you see what I mean? The recovery stuff. So in all, you would have run 2 miles, but half of that would have been slow. Always trying to drive. So I don't know what pace you'd run 200 meters in. Say if you did it in, I don't know, 60 seconds. I don't know. Yeah. And then 60 seconds off. And then well, you wouldn't run to, say 2 minutes off. So you halved it and did 200 meters slow. So you did 60 seconds and then 2 minutes recovery, then another 60 seconds, all dropping the recovery rate every time you did it. So you took 10 seconds off your recovery, 10 seconds off your recovery, because you're not forced to be able to run a lot quicker every time, but the time it takes you to recover from that could shorten. And so if you've done that, you've got the endurance of a mile in your legs, but you've got the speed of 200 meters. So then when you come back to running 1 mile solid, you should be able to run it quicker. Not at the 200 meter pace, but so there is an equation, if I can make it clearer. For Yasu, they say, if you can run 10 800 meters, and each 800 meters is run at 2 minutes 40 pace, that should roughly equate to how fast you can run a marathon, 2 hours 40, if you see what I mean.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just about, if you can run 200 meters at 20 kilometers an hour, yeah, you should be able to sustain 1600 meters at 16 kilometers an hour, so 10 mile an hour. Because it's going to feel a lot slower to you, but you're going to be on your feet a little bit longer. But you've actually, in a way, got that feeling of the length of time because you've been doing it with the recoveries in between. And if you can drop your recoveries to, say, 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off, 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off, at say, 20 kilometres an hour, then you're sure as hell going to be able to run a mile at 16 or 15 or whatever you want to run it at. And it's the same for any distance, really. It's like I said to you, when I go out and I think, if I'd told me you got a 2 hour run, I'd have needed oxygen before I went. You know, now it's just like, oh, 2 hours, that's not long. And it actually doesn't seem that long. It's just like, you know, so because it's relatively slow and it's not, you know, and that's how the same kind of thing works. But you need to do speed work.
Okay.
A lot of people say to me about marathons, oh, I've been increasing my mileage. I said, not being funny. You will get better because you will get fitter, but you won't get a lot faster. You've got to do speed work. It's very painful. To me especially, I don't like doing it at all, but you have to do it. And if you're doing speed work to its maximum, you're going to feel sick, you're going to feel dizzy, you're going to feel dread it, because it's hard, and you're going to push yourself that extra little bit out of yourself. And so when you come back to the distance you actually want to run, it's further, but it's not as fast, so it feels relatively easy. So you can't expect to run a marathon at the same pace you'd run 200 meters. Well, you might do if you just like jogging about. You might do that. I don't know. But it's all about dropping the intensity to compensate for the mileage. And it's the same over a mile. So if say you were doing on a treadmill, just put in, you know, 200 meters as fast as you can run. Then you need a recovery. Then as fast as you can run and fast as you can run. And when you come back to, like, I don't know what pace you're at, 14 kilometers an hour, whatever, it will seem relatively easy. You'll be able to keep it going, not as fast, but for longer.
Really appreciate that advice, because, and it makes me feel sick thinking of it. I can just imagine that it's going to be hard work, like you say, because you're really pushing it. And then I guess I'm going to understand that pace a little bit better when it comes to running the whole mile.